Until you start playing and until you start singing, you don't know what you're going to create. You have no idea what's inside of you until you start trying to push the boundaries of who you think you are and what you think you can do. For me, the buzz is to live a multidimensional life wherein my family life is important, my business life is a priority, but my creative life is something that is bubbling all the time.
Feels like love to all.
In my early life, I had pretty much a classical education with music. You know, fairly disciplined piano teacher who was teaching me Mozart and Beethoven and Chopin and all of those things, which was a great background. And my dad was playing the organ in the local church. I was in amongst classical music from the age of 2, you know. So obviously when I got to school, then it was starting to hear all kinds of other music. The early music that I liked best was kind of like David Bowie, Alice Cooper, Jimi Hendrix, Lou Reed, King Crimson, Rolling Stones, and Pink Floyd, of course. You know, I started getting to see some of my cousin's live gigs as well. When I went round to her apartment, she had, you know, just masses of guitars all over the place. There was always loads of musicians. So that was quite a big influence for me. By the time I left school, I'd established that playing the piano was a means of connecting with myself. Playing the piano was a means of getting up in the morning and saying, I wonder what this day has to offer. I wonder what inspiration is coming to visit me today. It was probably around that time that I was starting to read Freud and Jung. I was reading Carlos Castaneda about, I was starting to get an interest in spiritual direction, in Eastern mysticism. So I was really, as we all are perhaps at that time in our lives, starting to explore, well, what is this that I'm in here? What is what is this life that I'm in? What is this world that I'm in? And what is my inner life? So the piano was a means wherein I discovered something of that. That was a great period of expansion, which was like the beginning of the late 70s, early 80s. The other influence at that time was I started traveling, so I went around Africa quite a bit, and I went 6 months traveling around South America. So I then came in touch with authentic music from around the world. Through Dana, I started meeting a lot of professional musicians. So I met people like Jimmy Page, and you know, he was just jamming, and there was a bunch of us just playing drums and messing around in the background. And I used to make compilations on tapes and give them around to mates. I think the process of choosing the tracks for the compilations was very much part of my process of saying, well, what do I prioritize? What qualities of music do I really like? To me, they were very uplifting times in terms of that musical stimulus, because, you know, needless to say, at that time, you're also saying, well, what the hell am I going to do with my life? In the early 1990s, I joined a group of people called the Lehman Drummers. We would just go in the zone of whatever was wanting to be played, every sort of rhythm we could think of, and then we started chanting. And so we would start vocalizing whatever was in the mood in the room at the time. So it was completely spontaneous playing. So the Lehman Company was, if you like, the crucible in which we forged not only our sense of communion together, but also it was the forge for me to develop confidence in expressing myself musically. Every summer we had a bunch of people come and camp at my parents' place in Norfolk. And you know, it started pretty small. Each year more and more musicians came, more and more DJs came, and we had big marquees, and then we had fireworks, and we had lasers, and you know, it evolved every year. We had a fantastic performance in 2003. By that stage, it had evolved, the event had evolved into like 1,500 people coming. And we got the Lehman Company to buddy up with a group of stilt walkers and dancers led by a guy called David Greaves, whose dance company was called Hybrid. And David and I scripted a sort of mythological series of scenes. My job was to write the music for all of this. So I made like half a dozen backing tracks on my sequencer keyboard. And what we were going to do, the Lehman Company was going to perform spontaneously to what was happening all around us with these dancers. There was a great sort of postscript to this, which was that we had this dancer who was suspended from a massive helium balloon, and then I was playing this very, very ethereal, dreamy, floaty kind of ambient track to this, just watching the dancer and just playing according to, she was floating up, coming like this, and then the music was coming down like this, and so it was like a wave, and it was a very magical moment to be a part of something like that. One of the things that happened while I was recording with the Lehman Company was, because I was starting to record my own songs on the sequencer keyboard, just 4-bar loops looping round and round, and I was making a bass line, making a very basic drum pattern. It never occurred to me to do any singing. I was just doing instrumental tracks. I then took my keyboard to Finsbury Park. They were called Black AM Studios, and it was him, John Hall, and George Stewart, who were two of the ex-members of Kissing the Pink. And they had set up all the new software programs like the Cubase, and then all the software plugins and so forth. And to me, it was again like the kid in the proverbial sweet shop. You know, suddenly there was all this amazing software that I'd never seen before. John and George were just fantastic facilitators, and this is very much a thread of the whole story for me, is that one after another I've had very, very fortuitous meetings with people who've been able to facilitate me in the process of starting to learn to create my own songs. The beauty of my studio as I have it now is it's right there. It's my office that I'm in anyway, and it's right in front of my home. I'm looking out the window, very lucky, fantastic view of Salisbury Plain and all of that, but I'm focused on my business activities, and so half of my computer has got, you know, my Excel spreadsheets and my Word documents and the emails, and, you know, talking to all the business customers, and focused on steel construction and our retailing business in the Channel Islands. And then the other part of the laptop had the studio in it. I was very lucky. I was sponsored by Arbiter, who gave me some NFR software. So I had Cubase, I had some Native Instruments and some Steinberg software instruments. And then Richard helped me learn to work the software.